Hi there and welcome to this month's live. I'm Adrian Paul and hopefully you can hear me. We are constantly adjusting this live version so it gives you better quality and more interesting stuff to bring you. Now, thank you for being an Inner Circle member. It's been those of you that are new, welcome. And those of you that have been there, thanks for staying. I want to bring you up to date with a few things that we have. Once I'll get your questions as well. That we'll be fielding some of your questions. That some of them ones I think we've already received. David, I think we've got a few received questions that have come in as well. So, but before we do that, I just want to run over what we're doing and where we're going with the sword experience. To start with, I want to start with what happened in September, because that's the latest one that we've got, and that is the first thing we had was an event that we held in Tampa to kind of launch the preliminary ideas of our VVVI, a Vitae Invertus Institute, which is will have laser swords, for want of another word, because that's not copywritten. It is a martial art system which has been created on 3 planes to become a knight, and those 3 planes are from the warrior level, which is from the Jedi or the which would be spaceman if you want to call him, but the top level, which deals all with sabers, and the other one deals with more open hand, and the other one deals with the philosophy. Three paths that you can take to go through and become a knight of that path, whether you are a knight that is a warrior knight or one of the other 2. So we decided to run this because it has actually been a program that we saw used at the Polytechnic University of Southern Florida for many years, for 6 years now. And it was run through the programs for the students, whereby they actually were able to get credits for their work in the actual university. It was a program that really was based and started by Richard Gainey, who we've partnered with to take this into a more general area, into the different martial art halls, into the sword experience halls, into the universities around the world and around the US, so that we can bring this program to give you the real laser sword techniques and open hand techniques that would be used if you were using this type of weapon. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of lights, of course, as some of you would know. And also, people don't understand where this particular form of fighting was originated from. It was originated from the Japanese art of kendo. And kendo obviously has a lot of strikes, etc. But you're now dealing with a weapon that has a laser on the end of it. Therefore, whichever point it touches you, cuts. And people go, well, this is all fantasy, etc. But now it's actually been brought into competition. There are competitions now that are becoming very, very widespread that will later on possibly, and they're talking about it, becoming an Olympic event. This means that the touches you have on your hand, the touches you have in the sleeve are points. The touches you have on the hips, knees, etc. are points. What you also have to realize is now you're dealing with a saber as well as a sword. They have the same abilities. They have the front and the back end if you have a single-edged sword. If you have a 2-edged sword, you're dealing with both ends. So the saber is exactly the same. When you touch with a large, sharp weapon and you draw through, you're going to cut the other person. Therefore, it is a point or it is a cut. Therefore, there is no difference between using a lightsaber and a regular sword, except for weight and hilt and style, etc. So that's why we brought it into the sword experience, because we deal a lot with targeting. You know, everything's about where you're going to target. If I'm working with somebody on a film and we're doing a fight, or used to do a lot of the fights, these knuckles wanted to be kept safe, as did the other person's face and head. So I needed to make sure I was targeting correctly and I wasn't lowering the cut, or they weren't lowering the cut, so therefore accidents can happen. And this is what we kind of teach at the sword experience, that those targets are based in our 12-point system from 1 to 12 for attack and defense. And now with the lightsaber, you have slightly more targets. And we're changing or adapting the 12 systems into probably about 24, so that you're now dealing with, before for instance, we have an SXP1, which is to my left shoulder. From your side, it would be an attack to my left shoulder. Well, with the lightsaber, you might want to attack across the face or the neck here. Therefore, we give it a 1K, one neck. Those of you who are going to spell, okay. So it goes to the K. So we're adjusting these numbers, and we wanted to see what we got back from people with this particular style. It's different than what we do at the Sword Experience, because the Sword Experience, a lot of time we're just swinging a lot and we're doing very generic stuff. So we're trying to increase the repertoire that we have in giving it out to many different people. So that's what we did in September. We started that. We've got another few months. I would like to launch this at the beginning of next year. We're working on all the videos of that, because it will be an online event, so you can actually take it online and anywhere you are, as well as instructors can come and critique you physically, which we will do. We'll come in to critique you physically, or you can send it in online, much like we have when we've also released our Sword Experience Academy, which some of you are members of. Thank you so much. And some of you are going through the first 2 levels. I've noticed it. I've marked some of the videos, and it's interesting. I think, as I've said to people before, I'm going to be very specific on this, because I don't expect anybody to have a grade that they don't earn, and therefore, being online, it's a easier thing for you to do, because you do it on your own time, but you still have to do it. If you come to me and show me the moves and they're not right, I'm going to tell you they're not right, and I'm going to give you as much opportunity as you can to do them again, but you've got to do the work for it. It's like anything. If you want to go through life, you've got to do the work to achieve things. So the Sword Experience Academy is there for you guys to use online in your homes. Now, you can do it with a sword, or you can do it with our training tool, which is actually more interesting, because you get a workout on that. And this is something else I'm going to announce now, we will be bringing you new stuff with the training tool on our vlogs every day. We're going to be changing the format a little bit of the lives. We're going to actually be bringing you all the AP vlogs for you guys for free. They'll no longer be on YouTube for everybody to see, just you guys. And on the YouTube channel, we'll be bringing the actual training to do with the trainer, the movements, just a simple 1 minute for 1 moment, so you can work with it or work with the sword, whichever you wish. Just some tips to do. So we're going to change this up a little bit, and we always want to change things. Now, again, changing things, here's a couple of other things that I'm going to want to announce as well. Is obviously we have our Raven Blade giveaway. Those of you that have not sent in your pictures yet into your most creative sword pose, send it in, because we're ending it in a few hours. And end of this week, I think it's tomorrow actually, that we end this. We've got a number of people that have sent in their amazing shots, and you get to win one of our new Raven Blades, which is going to be worth approximately $400. So it's a great giveaway, and it'll be a great thing for you to see. And then by early next week, after October 1st, we will be launching the Raven Blade, which will have 10 specific blades that will be numbered 1 to 10. There will be no others made after that, just 1 to 10, which will be on offer from our launch date, which I believe is October 1st or October 2nd, just so that you're aware of that. Now, Raven Blades will be in 2 different colours, 2 different types of Tsuba. The blade itself is made of aluminum. The actual Tsuba itself is made either from brass or aluminum. And the handle is either going to be in our traditional Sword Experience Falcon design, slightly adapted, and it's a slightly new design from our older one, as well as a steel blue type of handle. So you can choose whichever one you want. Personally, if you do the steel blue, I think the aluminum looks good, and if you do the brown, I like the brass one. The brass rings and the metal rings, we are now also going to bring those to our wooden bokens. You guys are hearing this first. Nobody else has heard this. So we're going to be actually offering those for you to be able, if you buy any more bokens in the future, or if you want to retrofit your boken itself, you can buy these new brass rings which look really cool on the wooden items. So those are some of the things we've got going, as well as our Christmas launch, which again will be coming out in another couple of weeks, where we will be offering a slew of things, new things, keychains, which a lot of you have asked for. We're going to have specific discounts on some cards that you can give to people. For instance, the cameos you can give, those things you can give to friends and family. If you forget to give them a birthday present or a Christmas present, especially Christmas as it's coming up. So that launch will be happening again in another couple of weeks as well. So we have a lot of stuff happening, and we're working on our June 2023 French tour at the moment. Now, I've mentioned this in many places. The tour is going to be shaped so that you can do it. It's like a la carte type of thing. You can take the entire tour, which will start in Paris. Will be about a few days in Paris, whereby you will actually spend one day visiting the Highlander locations. You'll do a 1 day of a sword experience event. You'll have a day of shopping in Paris and another day to relax once you get there. Then we travel into the Loire Valley, where you will go to two or three different castles, wineries, different things of that nature, so that you have an experience of the Loire Valley, as well as, if we can, and we're working on it right now, to be able to actually perform what you learnt in Paris at one or two of those castles, which are stunning castles in the Loire Valley. Let me tell you, we've wanted to go there for a long, long time. And then into the south of France, where there are the beaches, where there's Nice, where there is the what they call it, the city of popes, where most of the popes came from, Avignon. Stunning city, stunning, as well as the small villages and on the coast and the beaches. So it's going to be a good 11 days. We're working on between 10 to 12 days of a trip that we can give you, that you can also segment. So if you wanted to just stay in Paris, you could do that. If you wanted to just come on the Highlander tour, you can do that. If you want to go to the Loire Valley and Paris, you can do that. If you want to go to Avignon and the south, just on its own, you can do that as well, or take the entire tour. So you are going to be able to do any and all of those things. So I'm kind of excited about that. It's the first time we've ever done anything like this. It's kind of like a retreat with many locations, and we're going to make it as pleasurable as possible. What I learnt this summer by doing the 2-day events that we had in England, and in actually in England was really, it was the ease of which it was for the first day to learn the choreography, keep it in your mind, then visit other places, and then perform it the second day, because it took off the pressure and you've had a night to sleep on it, had some nice food, some nice conversation with some new friends. So it was actually really interesting to sort of see that go through. Now, I'm going to take a couple of questions, and then we're going to get into something that I think is going to cause a few feathers to be ruffled, and that is discussing the Lord of the Rings versus the Rings of Power. The different types of film / series that they are. The Rings of Power is $1 billion enterprise by Amazon. That's how much it cost. That's why it looks amazing. But we'll get into that in a second. Obviously, the Lord of the Rings needs no introduction. It is what it is. It's a stunning display of special effects and acting and sword work by Peter Jackson and obviously the cast and crew. So we're going to get to that in a second. First of all, I'll answer one or two of your questions so we can get into that. And somebody asked me, were all the bird-shaped handles up until the Raven blade intended to be falcons? Yes, they were. The falcon was actually the owl, and the falcon was my family crest. And the Raven blade still has a falcon on it, but we're calling it the Raven blade. So yes, they were, because it happened to be part of my family crest. So it's a nod to my heritage, as well as it had some of the things that where the sword experience had been, where we'd visited, the things the great places we'd seen. So I wanted to incorporate that into the handles. Now, each of the handles are specifically made and molded, and as we go through the different pieces of the handles, if you like, every single one, every year or so we realize this works better, this should be longer, the balance should be here, it should be less rough in the hands, etc., etc. We slightly change it. We're hoping this Raven blade actually has even a better grip for you in that, but we want to constantly keep changing the look and feel of these things so that they constantly improve. And any suggestions you have, please send them to us, because we'll definitely listen to them, and then I'll just take them and throw them away. No, I won't. I promise I won't. Yeah, so that really is, where those have come from, and we are really trying to now expand the sword experience a little bit. So the two things I mentioned before, which are the VVVI Institute and the training program, as well as a corporate side of things we're trying to bring, is really sort of trying to expand us into different directions. All right, I'm going to bring in another question now. Somebody said, on Highlander, there was a rumor that a healer healed me by just putting his hands on me. No, it's not true. He didn't put his hands on me and he healed me. And by that, I mean, I had this shoulder. I think it was this shoulder. Yes, it was this shoulder. Doing a lot of sword work, and this is one of the things I talk about when we do sword work, is that you need to warm up. You warm up all the joints and muscle groups that you've got before you do anything. It's like when you're going for a run, you're not going to immediately go for a run. You just kind of stretch a little bit. Well, I never used to do that. Of course, being a young man, you've got it in your head like, I can do whatever I can, or whatever I want. But eventually, when you put a lot of stress, and I talk about this in the sword experience, on an extended arm like this, there's a lot of stress put here rather than bending the arm slightly, and takes the stress off the shoulder. But if you're constantly moving your hands in this direction, the stress on the shoulders eventually does get very extensive. And at one point I had a damage in this particular shoulder here, and it was towards the back. I think they said to me, that I had to be careful because of the rotator cuff, etc. And I had quite a lot of pain in here, and I obviously having done martial arts and looked at Qigong, which is interior medicine as well as exterior. I mean, it deals with interior, but it works with, if I strike here, I can push the energy through that wall here. And I'd seen many different examples of energy being moved, or items being moved inside a glass bowl, for instance, that could be moved just by somebody's power of their hand. And healing, the healers, the Qigong healers, I'd heard a lot about. So I thought, well, I want to try it, because this is something that is interesting to me. So I went to this guy, and he said, can you please take all your metal off? I said, okay, fine. So I lay down on it was a small Chinese guy, and I lay down on the bench, and he put a wet towel on my shoulder, and he said, okay, just make sure that you just stay still and you'll be fine, etc., etc. And I'm sitting there, and suddenly I feel this heat. I mean, extreme heat here. And I look over, and this steam coming off this wet towel. And as I look up, his hand is about here. I'm not joking. It was about here. He had directed that heat energy into my shoulder. And it did make the shoulder go work and heal. So there were definitely benefits to this. I wasn't able to go many times to him, because I did this in Los Angeles, and I was actually working in Vancouver, so doing the two at the same time was a little difficult. But this was proof, I've seen it, that it does work. This Qigong works. We have the ability to be able to transmit energy to heal things. And usually the points where we heal, there are many points on our body where we heal different things, we can also kill. Because those are our vulnerable areas. Those are the open areas into our energy, into our psyche, soul, if you want. And therefore, with a weapon or with open hands, you can either heal or kill in that particular area. I'm not going to get into that. It's a whole nother discussion. All right, look. Let's talk a little bit about... I answered a couple of questions. I think... I'm going to answer another one afterwards, because I know there's something coming up that's very important, that we are going to be doing something with possibly next year that I'd already spoke about doing. But I want to take us to start looking at these two films. Now, the thing about these films is that they, one is very, very successful, and the other one has mixed reviews. For me personally, Lord of the Rings was a stunning piece of visual as well as spiritual piece of storytelling. And by that I mean, obviously the visuals were stunning. I mean, the hundreds of thousands of troops coming and attacking each other, and the flying dragons and the etc was you know, and the falcons and the orcs and all this stuff was like, oh my gosh. What has to happen in any particular film or series is that it has to affect me or you, the audience. Rings of Power hasn't got there yet. Personally, it's an amazing visual and the story's great, but there's something missing and it hasn't gotten there yet. And I don't care for the characters yet as much. I'm beginning to. I've seen 4 or 5 episodes. And apparently this next episode coming soon is supposed to be a game changer. Well, it better be, because otherwise Amazon's going to lose a lot of money. Let's just take a look at a couple of scenes to kind of illustrate that point. I want to bring these 2 scenes up. Let's play these 2 scenes. The first one is it's the death of Boromir in the very first one with them, and you're captivated. Now let's look at this Rings of Power fight, one of the Rings of Power fight. Now again, as I said, you know, this is the beginning of the Rings of Power, but I just want to highlight something in here. This is where they're in the cave and they're trying to find the way to solving the question of, you know, revealing whether the big bad guy's still there. In this cave, they meet. Yeah. Now, the part of this fight, which to me is odd, is the fact that, you know, you've got this big bad. What do we call these, David? These Yetis, or, I mean, who can just swat all of these superhuman. I mean, remember the whatever that comes in. We can move it to the you know, when it comes in, it really doesn't. You know, it doesn't really affect me. The difference between the 2 scenes that we've just seen is that, you know, one is about this big thing, and I talk about this in my sword experience a lot of the time. You see a lot of visual effects, a lot of action, etc., but some you care for and some you don't. The reason why you don't is because you've not been invested already in those characters. I haven't been invested in her yet. I haven't invested in her group. I haven't been invested in, you know, the relationships they have, whereas the story with Frodo and Aragorn and Boromir, etc., there's a lot of things happening in that one scene. Admittedly, they're 2 totally different scenes. They're taken out of context in a sense. But this is where I think Rings of Power so far is falling a little short in the execution of the relationships and the dialogue, where it's not yet affected the audience in the way that Lord of the Rings did. Now, I also think that you also have something else that's a little bit different, because you already know Lord of the Rings, so you're going to expect a Lord of the Rings and Rings of Power. That's always the problem when you take a film and put it into a series. Same thing was for Highlander. Highlander to the film to Highlander the series was always an issue, because everybody was invested in Connor MacLeod. If I became Connor MacLeod, people would immediately liken the 2 and then decide. They still decide now between Connor and Duncan. Some say I like Duncan better, some say I like Connor better. That's human nature. Here, in these scenes that we've seen, it's the same type of thing. Are you invested in that character for a while? You don't want to go and change to another one. Have you seen the backstory? Does that scene move you? And so far, that scene didn't really do what it was supposed to do for me. want to bring another scene up this time now, which is we're going to do on the orcs. I'm going to play the first Lord of the Rings scene with a lot of the orcs coming in, and I'm going to play a second Power of the Rings, Rings of Power scene with the orcs involved, and I want to just sort of compare those two as well. So let's just take a look at these two.